Welcome friends to another r/IDontWorkHereLady video. I know it's a perilous journey and a lot of work all the way down to the like and subscribe buttons, but I plead for you to take the 2-second journey and press them down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Weekend Wench. I don't work for them, we're a completely different company and you came to us. I'm really at a loss as to how this happens, but it happens a lot. I work for a remodeling company we'll call ABC. There's a home builder that we'll call XYZ. We both sell the same brand of cabinets, but we're in no way, shape, or form related in any way. Our names are different. Our location is different. Our whole way of doing business is completely different. Today, a lady came into my store and asked me to give her a quote for adding some cabinets to her existing kitchen. I tell her, sure, we can do that. Let's start with what style and color you have now so that we can match. That is when this Karen flips her script and goes off on me. How am I supposed to know what style and color I have? You built my home. You should have all that information on record. You tell me. I have to explain to her that she bought her home from XYZ Builder, but we're ABC Remodeler. There's no possible way I have access to that information. I do not and have never worked for XYZ. We're not the same company. Let me stress that she came to our store and thought we worked for her original home builder just because we both carry the same brand. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I could do this job for a while with people like this, but after a while, I would just lose my patience. Would you have the patience to work in a retail environment where you have people coming in like this all the time? Where half the time you can't even do your job, you have to explain needless stuff to these kinds of people. Let me know if you have that kind of patience in the comments down below. Our next story is by Where's the Eggman? Do I really work here after all? I stopped by a big box electronics store to look for a new computer monitor on my way back to the office from a court appearance. I left my suit jacket in my car, but was wearing a tie. Somebody walked up behind me and said, "Hey, I bought this goddarn thing here," and I turned around to see an old guy with a big red nose that looked like somebody had jammed a potato into the middle of his face. You know the type. He reminded me of the Chris Farley character who lives in a van down by the river and probably spends most of his day waiting for kids to walk on his lawn so he can yell at them to get off of it. Before he could finish his sentence, I said, "Wait a minute, that's no way to start a conversation, you need to start over," and turned back to looking at the monitor. "Don't turn your back on me," he yelled. I looked over my shoulder and told him, "Until you decide to show some common courtesy, I'm not talking to you." By that point, several employees were watching from a distance. I exchanged quick smiles with a couple of them, so it was clear that they were just enjoying the show. Potato Nose really started losing his stuff. "I'm a customer of this store," he bellowed. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." "I don't care if you're the Queen of England," I replied. "I've already explained how this is going to work. Either you start over by calmly saying, 'Excuse me, may I speak to you a moment?' and I'll respond, 'Of course,' and give you my undivided attention, or you can continue to rant and rave, and I won't put up with it. Your choice." "That's it, where's the manager? I'll have your job." "Even if I wasn't self-employed, you couldn't have my job," I replied. "First, you need a 4-year degree, followed by 3 years of law school. Then you'd have to take the hardest bar exam in the country with a pass rate around 60%. I really doubt you could do any of that because you couldn't even figure out that I'm a customer too, and that all the employees wear identical polo shirts. But I'll tell you what, I will find the manager to point you out and tell them you're incredibly rude. So if you try to complain about any of the employees, they'll know any problems are your fault." As I walked away, one of the polo-shirted employees who'd been watching rushed up to me, giggling with excitement. "That was awesome," she said. "I'm the manager and I wish I could do stuff like that. Just let me know what you're buying and I'll give you the employee discount." She almost fell over laughing when I said, "Wait a minute, does that mean I really do work here after all? Dang, is that what it takes? You just gotta find a disgruntled customer and rip into them in front of the manager to get a discount? Forget couponing, forget sales. We just go find disgruntled Karens in stores and expose them for being the Karens they are in front of managers. Then you get discounts for free." Our next story is by Anonymously Animalist. I got expelled from the university I don't go to. Let's clear some things up. I constantly get lost. Without Google Maps, I would probably be wandering somewhere around my street for ages, stranded from home. There was a sign with the logo of a restaurant I wanted to go to and a door next to it. I didn't notice the sign was pointing to a gate to go around the block, not inside. I walked in and noticed that it didn't look quite right, but continued to walk ahead looking for pointers. It's quite cold, so obviously I was wearing a heavy winter jacket. I turned the corner and saw a group of people standing around this old guy. I understood by that point I'm completely lost and wanted to turn back. Unfortunately, the old guy noticed me. He yelled at me that I'm late again to his class and I'm wearing a jacket. I tried to tell him that I'm not a student, but he cut me off. "Who do you think you are?" he yelled, his face getting red from anger. "I told you repeatedly to leave your jacket in the cloakroom, and you're again this week late." I tried to explain myself again, but he waved me off to be quiet. "Just get the heck out and don't even think about going to any university in the city. I'll tell them what kind of person you are. You're wasting my time. You should think about going back to preschool. Get out." I was scared by this point and evacuated. I feel kind of bad for the guy he thought I am. Poor dude. But on the other hand, maybe I should think of this encounter as a premonition. I wanted to enroll in some university next year, and I actually didn't finish preschool. Free future reading for me then. By the way, I found the restaurant, but my order was cold when I got there. Although OP randomly stumbled into this professor's class and has nothing to do with this school, don't you guys feel like maybe they should try to report this teacher a little bit? Because imagine a kid that shows up to class with a coat on. Maybe they do it a few times. People make mistakes. The teacher goes and just treats you like that in front of the entire class and tells you to get out? Go back to preschool? Don't even try to further your education? They probably won't do anything, but doesn't hurt to mention the kind of appalling behavior. This next story is by Fairy120997. If you look at products or even exist, that means you work here. I was at Martwall looking for a specific item, grain-free wet dog food, as it was being fed to a blue-tongued skink. Mind you, I'm wearing a sweatshirt and jeans, nothing remotely close to uniform. As I'm looking for something specific, I have a package in my hand, and I'm reading the ingredients on the back to make sure it's indeed grain-free and safe for skinks to eat. A woman approaches me and asks where something is. Obligatory, "Oh, I don't know, I don't work here." The woman, with her full audacity and complete sass, says, "Well, you were looking at the stuff like that. I thought you worked here." I looked at her and said, "Isn't that what customers do? Look at stuff before they buy them? That's kinda what shopping is." She called me disrespectful and walked away. So you mean to tell me this grown woman walks up to somebody, gives them a sassy, kind of off-putting remark, and then gets offended when in return they get a sassy, kind of off-putting remark? At least this hypocrite was able to identify that you weren't an employee after saying you're not an employee and just walked away. A lot of times you would have an ongoing Karen situation right there in the store. Our next story is by Typhlosion112191, coming soon to a theater near you. Saw a post about a customer going to a remodeling company because they sold the same brands as the contractor who built their home. And it reminded me of this. Back when I was in high school, I got a job at one of 3 local Blockbuster stores in my town. This was almost 10 years ago. I stayed with my store 3.5 years before it closed down due to the complete incompetence of Dish Network. As this was in the early days of, or before, streaming services, YouTube was still fairly independent of Google, Netflix was only sending scratched up DVDs through snail mail, and there weren't 15 apps on one device to be opened and watched a few hours each year. We were naturally the best place to get movie rentals when they hit DVD and Blu-ray. We didn't even have competition in my town outside of the Redbox rental stations and Netflix's mailbox rentals. So it was either come to us or wait for one of the other guys to get the same movie if they had it. The real problem for my store was that there was a movie theater just a couple of blocks away, and their sign was close to my store as both this theater and my Blockbuster were close to a major highway in the city. As a result, myself and my coworkers would always have to deal with exchanges like this. A customer says, "Hi, I'd like to rent insert movie that isn't in theaters yet. Do you have any copies of it?" Blockbuster employee says, "No sir/ma'am, we don't. That movie hasn't been to theaters yet, so it hasn't been released on DVD yet." The customer says, "But I saw this movie mentioned when I watched this movie." Holds up recent new release they rented the day before. The employee says, "Yes sir or ma'am, that was a trailer for that movie. It's set to come out in theaters within the next month or two, so we don't have it available to rent. The customer says, "So you'll have it in a month or two?" The employee says, "No, sir or ma'am, it'll be in theaters at that time. We won't have that movie available to rent until about 4 to 6 months from now." The customer says, "If you don't have it to rent, then why is it being shown on the movie I rented from you?" The employee says, "We don't control what the movie studios put on the DVD as featured trailers." Afterwards, they would either rent something else or complain they'd have to go to another Blockbuster in the area and ask for a film there. Though we'd also tell them no other store would have it yet. Even better were the times people came to us and asked for movies listed on the movie theater sign, to which we'd then have to explain that we weren't the movie theater. Now, I hate to break it to OP, but OP said back when YouTube was still fairly independent from Google, Google purchased YouTube 15 years ago now. So according to when OP said this takes place, it was about 5 years after that. In fact, around the time frame OP described, Google Plus, that failed social media that they tried forcing tied into YouTube, that was in full swing. What I'm trying to say is, I feel really old right now. Our next story is by Dova Ferret. You had a 50-50 chance. So this took place when I worked for a well-known, in the States, retail pharmacy. We had a distinct uniform and were required to wear a name tag at work with our name, name of company, and job title. I got off work one day, threw an unzipped hoodie, it had a Grim Reaper on the back if I recall correctly, over my monochromatic uniform with my name tag peeking out, and went to a major retailer where one of my friends worked on the sales floor. He was wearing a vest, clearly showing he worked for the store we were in. Also, he was working. I was sitting on the ground talking about pharmacy BS, darn new people putting stock bottles back in the wrong spot, what the freak. A customer walks up to us, looks between us a couple times, somehow decides I'm the store employee here, and starts asking me where things are in the store. My friend starts silently laughing behind her as I give her a deer in the headlights look. This is a giant store with all kinds of merchandise. I couldn't even help her if I wanted to, and politely inform her that I don't work there. My friend steps in and helps her, but I was still shocked that between the two of us, she thought I was the employee. Well, I could imagine if you're around an employee, maybe if your friend looked slightly busy, and your outfit looked vaguely employee-like, maybe they thought, this could probably be somebody that could help me. They just were very wrong. And our final story of the day is by Bieber's Official. I don't work here, dude. Bit of a gender swap twist to the subreddit, hope it peacefully works here. I was at PetSmart in the little room with the cats, sitting down and petting a friendly white and gray one. Upon leaving the room, a man approached me and asked, "Hey, you work here, right?" I said no, and it was odd cause I wasn't wearing anything similar to the uniform. My shirt was green. He thought I worked there cause I was in the room with the cats, unaware that anyone was allowed to go in and pet them. I told him that, and he apologized and we parted ways. Was a bit odd, but not an unpleasant interaction. I'm gonna be honest, this might be a bit of a tangent from the story, but I both love and adore going to like PetSmart type places. It's always a joy to see all the animals and the cats and stuff, and you get to just pet them and see them up close. But then I feel terrible because I want to adopt all of them and take them all home with me and be a weird cat man with a million cats all over the place. And the birds and the hamsters and the millions of fish. And especially the PetSmarts that have the baby turtles. Those are the most adorable things ever. I'm sorry. Animals are great and wonderful and I appreciate them. But with that being said, that's all the time that we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.